Hey everybody, it's PartyElite, and today we're taking a look at the upcoming Jurassic World Evolution 2, the sequel to the Dino Park Management game from 2018 based on the Jurassic World series, which in turn of course is spawned off the Jurassic Park series, which in turn is spawned off the excellent book. What a legacy. Thanks to the folks at Frontier, I had the opportunity to sit down with the game for a couple of hours to play two of the many game modes, and if you're familiar with the channel, you'll know that I was hopeful but a little skeptical about this sequel. The first one left much to be desired, and I didn't play too much of it as a result. So, as a huge lover of dinosaurs and management games, I am very pleased to say that Jurassic World Evolution 2 has me extremely excited after my gameplay session. In the 2 hours of gameplay, I was overwhelmed, in a good way, with all there was to do, and I can't wait to talk about some of the best bits. You'll hear me make some comparisons to Planet Zoo specifically from time to time, since I've covered that extensively for the past 2 years on the channel, so I think it makes a good point of reference, especially for those of you who've sort of been familiar with the channel for these last couple of years. But whether you are already familiar with the first game or you're completely new to the series, there's lots to discuss. Let's not waste any more time, and let's see my personal 7 reasons to be excited for Jurassic World Evolution 2. Deeper management. Right off the bat, the biggest and most impactful draw for me is the significantly deeper level of management than I had expected. While the previous game had guest types split, if I recall correctly, into regular, scientist, and security, here we have what looks like different classifications of regular guests instead. You've got your general guest, your adventure guest, your nature lover, and your luxury guest. Each of these guest types will gravitate towards specific types of experiences. An adventure guest might seek out the carnivores, for example. So, do you try and cater specific regions of your park to specific guest types so they don't have to go too far to be constantly entertained? Or do you try to make every region of your park equally interesting to all guest types? This conversation continues when you place guest amenities. Based on the customization options, your amenities will satisfy and attract different types of guests. So again, do you make specific parts of your park for specific types of guests, or do you try and balance things out across the board? I do wish the visual customization went a bit further, yes, but I'm really happy seeing these different guest types and different things that appeal to them in different ways. It feels a lot more centered around management rather than pure aesthetics. So, whereas I enjoy the decorative aspects of, say, Planet Zoo or Coaster, the management aspect of JWE2 here is much more pronounced. But it goes beyond just that. There's a lot less automation in JWE2. You need to be more on the ball as the player and manager of the park, or so it felt at least in my 2 hours with the game. For example, you don't just constantly and automatically know how the dinosaurs are feeling. You need to get your rangers out there to check up on the animals to make sure they're feeling okay and to get an update to their current statistics. To me, this was kind of reminiscent of the scene in Jurassic Park where our heroes, if we can call them that, come across these sick Triceratops. Like, yeah, how would anybody know in this vast expanse that there's a sick dinosaur? Now, we can explain away these things with modern and sci-fi conveniences, I suppose, like extremely accurate biometric trackers and blah blah blah, but no, this game doesn't take the easy way out. And as your park gets bigger, I'm sure this becomes more involved, needing you to optimize your ranger stations and paths to make sure you're always privy to your dinosaurs' needs so that you can tackle issues as they come up. I thought this was super cool, and now I can't recall if this specifically was something rangers could do in the previous title, but you were able to do things like repair fences and refill feeders with rangers, which was an option here as well with the sequel, whether you're driving yourself or simply giving orders to perform the tasks. You're also able to get medical teams out to seek out and help deal with injuries and illnesses. Overall, it just feels like a much more intimate and involved experience than I ever got with Planet Zoo. Now, will it get too cumbersome at some point? Time will tell, but what I've experienced so far was a very nice change of pace and intensity that I imagine will exist across most of the many game modes. On which note, multiple game modes. The game boasts 4 game modes, of which I was able to play 2 at this showcase event. The campaign mode is story-driven, and it takes place after the Fallen Kingdom movie, tackling all sorts of interesting and unexpected topics. The mission we played features, for example, the idea of some dinosaurs being poached. Later in the same mission, there's talk of dinosaurs that have escaped deeper into the wilderness of the region and need rescuing. While I was only able to play a portion of one campaign mission, it was a promising start to the experience, and this is coming from somebody who typically ignores the campaign mode in games like this. I mean, just look at all my Planet Zoo coverage. I've never touched the campaign pretty much. Here, though, I felt quite compelled to engage in the campaign, not just because of these little story beats, but also because of how it integrated with other gameplay systems and how it felt like a more, again, involved evolution and intertwining of gameplay mechanics and why you're doing what you're doing. There's a driving force that goes beyond reaching financial or happiness thresholds. The campaign isn't just a gated experience, but, at least so far, feels like a bit of an adventure, having you do all manner of things beyond just checking numbers. You go driving about, seeking out clues, looking for dinosaurs, again, like I was saying earlier, that have kind of, run off and are maybe running rampant, and you have to go and rescue them and trank them. And there's just so much going on that goes beyond the boundaries of the park aspect of the game, and that really was quite engaging in ways I wasn't expecting. Now, if you do want to focus more on the number checking aspect of things, and don't get me wrong, that is something that I quite enjoy, then you do have the challenge mode. And this felt a bit more like a sandbox of sorts, though I believe it is a bit more of a guided experience with challenges coming up, every month or so, giving you something new to take on, some new objectives, and overall rating systems and things like that as well. So this is not a sandbox mode, but there is a separate sandbox mode that we were not able to experience at this event. Now, with regards to this challenge mode, we found ourselves in Canada, which is a good way to show off the new biomes, I think, and it felt more like a traditional park builder where we were in charge of our own progress in many ways, though there were, again, suggested goals to follow. This mode, though, it felt like it had fewer restrictions and gates, and as long as you did all the research and found all the fossils and built all the buildings, you could do more or less what you wanted to, of course, though, managing your finances and things like that. But that's where the sandbox mode comes in, where my assumption would be you're not limited by things like research and finances, etc., etc. I can't talk too much about that since I didn't actually get to play it, but again, I assume it's a no-holes-barred kind of approach where you just start with everything unlocked and there's no pressure as far as research or ratings or anything like that is concerned, and just kind of have a good time. For me personally, I feel like the challenge mode and the campaign mode are the most interesting of those three, but there's this fourth mode that is extremely interesting in its description. It's called Chaos Theory, and it lets you replay pivotal events from the 5 movies, seeing if tiny variations like the orientation of the hairs on your hand, the amount of blood distending your vessels, imperfections in the skin never repeat and vastly affect the outcome. I'm curious about this mode. What if scenarios are always fun thought experiments, and the idea here is to put you in charge of these across, as I said, all 5 movies from the Jurassic Park trilogy to the 2 released Jurassic World movies. I'm looking forward to dealing with clever girls while holding on to my butt. I grew up with this series, so yeah, it's safe to say I'm pretty excited. Biomes, dinosaurs, and how they relate. Canada got a lot of love in the gameplay session, which was very nice to see. The Dinosaur Provincial Park and some very well-preserved dinosaur fossils have been found in Alberta, which is home to one of the richest sources of dinosaur fossils. But beyond that, there were a few reasons that the inclusion of Canada was a highlight. For one, Canada has a multitude of biomes, and I wonder if we'll see all of them in JWE2, and for 2, Canada is not, and this might surprise some of you, but Canada is not located in the Muertas island chain. That's right, JWE2 takes us beyond just a few islands and to the greater world where we'll see all manner of climates and foliage and terrain and dinosaur types. With over 75 species of dinosaurs, you can bet they'll all have different wants and needs, and from taigas and deserts to who knows what else, we can expect to see different challenges for different dinosaurs in these different settings. We saw a little bit of that during our gameplay session, again needing to scope out the current status of the dinosaur before adjusting the terrain accordingly, and while what I saw so far was relatively simple, I want to dive more into this when I get my hands on the game in the future. Planet Zoo, again, as a point of comparison, does a very good job of breaking up the biomes, and if we get a similar thing going here, it would be pretty neat. I didn't see the planting of individual trees here though, so I imagine at least part of it is automated, and if that's the case, I imagine that's because players will be spending a lot more time dealing with other things that, in the grand scheme of things, are maybe more important than picking the right tree to put down. The new hatcheries. Not only has the base hatchery been revamped in how it works, but the aviary and aquatic hatcheries operate either completely differently in the case of the former, or are new additions in the case of the latter. Really quickly, when you place, say, an aviary or an aquatic enclosure, you need to attach the appropriate hatcheries to those buildings so that you can release dinosaurs directly into the enclosure. With land-based dinosaurs, you're not restricted in that way, and instead you can build freestanding hatcheries or can opt to attach them to an enclosure instead. I'm not yet exactly sure of the benefit of one over the other. With the former, you can have a chopper come through to pick up and drop dinosaurs where they're needed, and I guess that's a bit more time-consuming than simply releasing them right into the enclosure, or in the case of me testing out the buttons, releasing them into the open, which resulted in the need to trank and shift them using choppers after all, but that's besides the point. Hatcheries across the board are a fair bit more involved now, and while you still need to go on archaeological digs and study fossils to unlock dinosaurs, there are more complexities added after that's done as well now. For one, you need to pick the dinosaur you want to incubate, and you want to pick genetic modifications you might want to apply to it. Now, this might seem a little familiar. These modifications can do minor things like alter the coloration, or they can make behavioral changes as well, and the latter can be quite massive as far as management is concerned, because sometimes they'll become friendlier, or they'll be more social, or they might require less caretaking. So there are a lot of modifications that you might want to change. The modifications themselves will add to the time and cost of execution, but again, they might yield better results. Now, incubation takes time depending on the scientists you have assigned, and only some of your eggs will successfully incubate, which is just the first step of the process. The second step is picking which of those successfully incubated eggs you'd like to actually hatch, picking and choosing based on traits that you want to retain or avoid. Releasing doesn't necessarily have any risks involved unless you click the wrong button, so I can hardly call that a third step in the process, but I do quite like how much more room there is with regards to choices to make in this new system. You really want to take a look at the various sort of genetic, I guess, traits that you've unlocked or embedded into these eggs and pick and choose, which ones you'd like to hatch, because not all the time will you see a successful integration, let's call it, of the genetic modifications you wanted. However, you just put down a lot of time and money in this set of incubation. Do you really want to leave behind a handful of these eggs that you spent so much, again, time and money on? Or are you fine with hatching some of these eggs that don't have those traits you were hoping for? It's a good bit of management. It's, again, more involved than I would have imagined, and I'm really curious to see how far this system can be pushed and what kind of decisions we'll have to make. I also quite like the management needed in executing these tasks beyond the, eggs themselves. I'm talking about the people. I'm talking about staff management. Almost all of the key moves you're going to make stem from the work of scientists. From incubating eggs to modifying genomes to digging up and researching fossils, the scientists are the people who make your park possible, let alone viable. Jurassic World Evolution 2 does a great job of making them an integral part of your day-to-day tasks, integrating them and their management in a way that actively engages the player. This was the thing that was my ultimate downfall during my play session. I wanted to get as much done as quickly as possible in the 2 or so hours, so I kept overworking my scientists to the point that they refused to work anymore. See, scientists can actually get stressed out and overworked, and if you reach that tipping point, you might not just lose access to your most capable employees for some time, but you might actively see them try to sabotage your park, so make sure to say the magic word. Yes, please and thank you, but also, hey, why don't you take a break for a little while, goes a long way. You'll have limited access to scientists until you build the appropriate buildings, and as you hire more scientists, you'll want to keep an eye out for what their best stats are and how high they can be leveled up at their highest. When a scientist is put to work, their traits might make a difference depending on the task at hand, but the skill level itself is also a key determining factor in how smoothly and quickly a task will go, and how many scientists you need to assign to a specific task to even have it be possible. Every aforementioned task has a minimum threshold depending on its difficulty, and you can either assign one scientist who's good enough, many whose combined skill level meets the threshold, or many whose combined skill level surpasses the threshold for faster work. Every assignment, however, occupies those scientists for the duration of said assignment and also adds to their unrest. Keep working them over and over again without rest, and as I said before, they might pull the trigger on some nefarious plot. I thought this set of systems was really cool. Human resources is a major part of managing any workspace, making sure to strike the balance between overworking your employees while underpaying them and still making sure they stick around is not an easy task, but it's one that management games often ignore. Planet Zoo, for example, barely touches on staff happiness, or rather it's just so easy to tackle that it may as well not be a thing. Meanwhile here, you need to be actively aware of who is good at what to get the most out of them, while occasionally assigning people to tasks they might not be the best at just to get something done and just to let your superstar scientists have a bit of a break every once in a while. This was a big one for me, and I do hope it remains a complex aspect of the game as it goes forward and as you play longer and longer sessions. I imagine Sandbox mode will go easy on players in this aspect, if not perhaps be turned off entirely, but just like I enjoy managing the attractions and guests' needs in my management style games, I also enjoy managing my staff needs. So again, this one's huge for me. And on the topic of huge, let's talk about Minigames Galore. Okay, so this one's also a bit of a big deal for me because it's something I was very wrong about with the first game without even realizing it. Those of you familiar with the first game in the series will be familiar with some of the various tasks you can take on yourself. Driving around in the ranger truck, tranquilizing dinosaurs as needed, etc., etc. So if you played the previous title, some of this might be familiar to you, but if you've played only Planet Zoo or Coaster and are on the fence about this title, let me show you a whole new world of engaging what I'll call mini-games. So just like you can send your rangers and medical staff to go do checkups on their own through automation, you can actually take control of the vehicles yourself to perform the same tasks. You'll be flying your chopper and firing tranquilizer darts at dinosaurs that need to be moved or otherwise sedated, and you can either simplify the shooting process if that's not your thing, or you can fire the gun yourself as well as fly the chopper around. You'll get in the ranger and medical trucks from time to time to drive around and, as stated earlier, repair broken fences, resupply feeding spots, or, and this was my favorite bit, take photos. Driving around in the Jeep, taking on photography challenges, or simply taking photographs for the sake of the financial rewards they can get you was a lot of fun, and with all the really cool moments you could challenge yourself to try and capture, I can see several hours per dinosaur per activity spent with the camera just trying to get that perfect shot. See, in Jurassic World Evolution 2, you're actually a physical entity when participating in these actions, and the dinosaurs take notice. You'll actually occasionally be charged by a dinosaur whose territory you've encroached on, or you might accidentally be looking the wrong way when the poor goat is in the air, or if you're lucky, you might get the camera out just in time to get the shot of a lifetime. In a medical truck, you'll be scanning for issues, and in the campaign mode especially, you'll sometimes spend time out and about, away from the constraints of the park, engaging with dinosaurs in the wild. This was especially cool to me, and I definitely wasted too much time with it during the limited playtime I had, but God, I can't really call it a waste. Again, it gave me that feeling from Jurassic Park where they first see the Brontosaurus revealed, the Welcome to Jurassic Park sequence. Like, man, I was a kid again, driving next to these dinosaurs and just pausing and taking pictures, or even just, just watching them. It just made me so pleased. The dinosaurs supposedly boast a bunch of new behaviors, and I'm sure I didn't see all of them or anything, but even to catch them ambling about in nature, feeding, laying down, or otherwise running around, it was great. The campaign had missions that put you on the back of the truck scanning for clues and seeking out specific dinosaurs, sure, but everything that was going on around those tasks was just as, if not more, compelling and engaging, and that doesn't even technically have to do with managing the park itself. I really hope encountering and rescuing dinosaurs from the wild plays a bigger role in the game here, because going on just even one excursion in my time playing was a blast. It was short-lived, but it was a lot of fun, and I think a big part of the credit for that has to go to the visual fidelity. The game is beautiful. The level of detail in the environment is exceptional. The foliage looks great, the environmental effects and the weather effects look fantastic, but it all comes together excellently, as you might imagine, thanks to how great the dinosaurs look. Like, we can't say with certainty if they look realistic, per se, but they definitely look believable. The way they move, the way they interact with the world around them, the way they behave is just amazing. The level of detail on the skin is exceptional, and the animations themselves are fantastic, though admittedly seeing the same goat kill animation gets repetitive pretty quickly. I do hope to see a few variations for each dinosaur, because it was honestly one of the coolest animations in the game, and it came out of nowhere, and I'm pretty sure I giggled with glee when I first saw it happen, but, you know, by the 5th or 6th time I saw it happen, I was like, can we get another one? I think there's little surprise here with how beautiful these guys look, though. Frontier clearly has some great artists on hand, and their talents are on full display here. I'm really excited to spend time with the dinosaurs and see all of their interactions and animations especially. During our brief time with the game, I was torn between the management elements and just spending time with these beautiful animals. I barely got a chance to see the new flyers or aquatic options, but I'm definitely excited to do so. I also definitely spent entirely too much time watching dinosaurs get picked up and dropped off via chopper. Look how great this looks. They look legitimately limp from tranquilization. Like, how amazing is this? But yes, driving around and just spending time with the dinosaurs, zooming in to see them up close, or even just seeing the day-night cycle or weather shifts in action, all helped the whole experience feel better. And though the UI was still a little clunky at times, I felt like it was a lot cleaner than the first game and felt less cumbersome, though I'll save my critique and feedback on UI and UX when things are closer to done. Overall, the game is looking absolutely gorgeous, so easy to get immersed in, and just like I was saying earlier, go out for a drive and sit and just watch the dinosaurs and, you know, at least for me personally, feel like a kid again. I hope this video has given you some insight into what you can expect from Jurassic World Evolution 2 when it releases later this year, early in November. If you have any questions or concerns or thoughts you'd like to share, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. I'll answer whatever questions I can, and those that I can't answer, I'll try and find the answers for you. You can bet I'll be covering this game a lot more on the lead up to and after release, so if you would like to stay up to date with that and more strategy, management, and tactics gaming, don't hesitate to subscribe to this channel. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big old thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.